So this is the Get Ready lesson for the probability unit in Workplace Math 10. We are working on fractions, decimals, and percents today. So first we're going to review how to reduce a fraction. When you reduce a fraction, you're not changing the fraction, you're just writing it in a different way with smaller numbers so that we can make our calculations more efficient. We can compare fractions easier when the numbers are smaller. And also in the real world, fractions are typically presented in lowest terms. So to reduce a fraction, we want to look for a number that divides evenly into the numerator, that's the top number, and the denominator. And we want to pick the biggest number we can if possible. So we want to choose the greatest common factor. That's the number, the biggest number that's going to divide both. So for example, if we had 50 over 75, the biggest number that goes into 50 and 75 is 25. And when you're reducing fractions, you want to make sure you do the same thing you do to the top and bottom. That way the fraction you're not changing the number, you're just writing it in an equivalent way. So that would give you 2/3. Let's say you encounter a fraction and you don't know what the greatest common factor is. You could spend time using a method to try and find it, or you could just pick anything you know that divides into both numbers. Like for example, I know both of those divide by 5, and then you could just simply divide by 5 again. So you can reduce in multiple steps if you want as well. You'll still end up with the same lowest terms fraction, 2 over 3. Okay, 14 over 16, those are both even numbers. So let's divide by 2. And 7 over 8. There's nothing that can go into 7 and 8 evenly, so we're just going to leave it like that. All right, so why don't you pause the video here and try these next ones, and then you can come back and check. Okay, so 62 over 10, you can divide those both by 2 to give you 31 and 50. 45 over 72, those are both divisible by 9. The way you can tell something's divisible by 9 if it has 2 digits is if you add them up. Actually, it works for any number of digits. And they equal something that's divisible by 9. So in this case, these are divisible by 9. Get 5 over 8. Okay, 775 and 800. You can divide by 5 twice, or you can just go straight into dividing by 25. And then you get 31 over 32. And here, dividing by 8, you get 8 over 25. Okay, so now let's practice converting between fractions, decimals, and percents. In this unit, we're going to be studying probability. And so we need to be able to present probabilities in different ways, because in the real world, numbers are presented in all 3 of those ways. You'll see fractions, decimals, and we'll see percents. And so it's good to know how to convert between them. So let's start with percents, and I'm going to just give an example here. Let's say I had the number 19%. The word percent means out of 100. The reason we like percents is because it's easy to compare them because they're all out of the same number. So to write a percent as a fraction, it's really straightforward. You just make the number out of 100. And then to turn it into a decimal from a fraction, you can just simply divide. That's what a fraction means. So if you want, you can take your calculator. Oh, I'm going to turn it on here. 19 divided by 100. And you get 0.19. The other way to think about it is when you divide a number by 100, it just moves the decimal place 2 spots over. So that decimal means 19 hundredths, or 19 out of 100. So those are just 3 ways of writing the same number. Yeah, so let's practice converting here. All right, so let's start with the percents. To go to a decimal, again, we just divide by 100. So you just simply move the decimal place 2 spots. So it's 0.17. And as a fraction, remember percent means out of 100. So we write 17 out of 100. Okay, 135. Again, move the decimal place over 2 spots. 1.35. Now here's how to turn a fraction from a decimal. So we want to count the number of positions after the decimal place. So here we have 35 hundredths because there's 2 spots after the decimal place. So when we write our fraction, we want to put 2 zeros because we have hundredths. And we have a 135 hundredths. Then we can reduce it. So again, 2 zeros because there was 2 spots after the decimal place. So the number of zeros you write in your fraction, that's how many spots after the decimal place you have. We can divide this by 5, and we get 27 out of 20. So percentages, that's an example where your percentage is larger than 100. That can happen, especially if you're talking about percentage growth. 71%. So here, when we're going this way, we want to multiply by 100. So that's moving the decimal place over 2 spots. So 0.71 would be 71%, and it would be 71 out of 100. Okay, so this one, again, moving the decimal place over, 37.5%. So you can have a percentage that has a decimal place in it as well. And when we're changing this to a fraction, see how this has 3 numbers after the decimal spot. That means we're out of 1,000. So we have 375 thousandths. So 3 zeros here, again, because there's 3 numbers after the decimal place. And then we can go ahead and reduce that. If you divide it by 125, or you can reduce it over multiple steps, you get 3/8. Okay, and then the last way, excuse me, changing a fraction into a decimal. If it's not out of 100 or out of 10 or out of something that's easily converted into 10 or 100, what you want to do is just divide. So you can just take our calculator and type 11 out of 12, or 11 divided by 12, and that gives you the decimal. So calculators work in decimals. So 0.916, and then the 6 repeats forever. The only reason that last number is a 7 there is because the calculator has rounded it off. So it's the way to write that number is 0.916 with a bar over top. That means the 6 just goes on forever. And when we change this to a percentage, we're just going to move that decimal place over. So it's 91.6 and then repeating. Okay, let's do 2 out of 5,000. Again, we're going to just use the calculator here. Calculators work in decimal numbers. Oh, my calculator is in a scientific mode. Let me see if I can change that. Okay, so hopefully your calculator is not in this mode, but it's 0.0004. So what that means is it's going to be 0.04%. Okay. All right. So the -4 just meant that the decimal place is 4 over to the left.